Who is that?
I don't know.
Where'd she come from?
I don't know that either. Maybe she's dead.
Mama!
Come here, baby. There's nothing to be scared of, okay?
Daddy will know what to do.
All right.
Hello? Can I help you? My husband will be back very soon.
We both know your husband's not coming home.
Right, The Woman in the Yard, a movie that I saw very little advertising for. I saw it on Twitter and then saw it in like some other places and then didn't see anything, didn't see any marketing. So it was kind of one of those, oh yeah, this movie's out. I forgot about that, even though it's produced by Blumhouse. So a little shocking on that one. But anyway, The Woman in the Yard. So from the trailer, this movie looked kind of like a supernatural Get Out. And it was like okay, you're already kind of on bad footing already. And because there's a lot of movies, ever since Get Out came out, there's a lot of movies that are trying to be in those same footsteps as that movie, but don't have the characters, don't have the writing as good as Get Out was. Or as good as Get Out did. Like, the characters were a lot more interesting. They felt more menacing. Its writing was so tight and so on point. And, you know, with Get Out, Jordan Peele had more of a vision. When all these other movies, it was like, yeah, you're kind of just trying to copy. But that's what I saw from this. And then I watched it. And do I think this movie is atrocious? Do I think it's bad? No. And here's why. Atmosphere, they played a lot with shadows. And I thought that was kind of cool. It kind of reminded me of something like Darkness Falls, kind of another horror movie where it's like, yeah, I saw it. Do I need to watch it again? Not really. But it had an interesting idea. You know, the Tooth Fairy, you know, being real and, you know, staying in the shadows. And I was like, all right, that's kind of cool. I like that idea. But, you know, you can play a lot with shadows. You really can. So the atmosphere, I think was good. But you need good characters. You need good writing to keep that atmosphere up. Because atmosphere can only do so much. And the writing was a bit deeper than I expected. You know, mainly coming from who is this woman in the yard. It was just like okay, I was not expecting that. But, you know, would I've maybe thought of something else? Yeah, but, you know, it was still interesting enough. I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. All right. But unfortunately, you come to the family. And so a plot of the movie is you have this family. It's a single mom who's raising these two kids. One of them, her son, is kind of being rebellious a little bit, like saying like, yeah, we need to get out of here, because they live on a farm. It was their dad who wanted to just move away from the country and just go live at a farm. And then the father dies, and then she's raising these two kids by herself, and you can tell there's a lot of friction there. They're still kind of dealing with grief, but they're trying to kind of get it past. But it's not really helping when, you know, the patriarch of the family, the person of the family who actually wanted to move into a farm, is the one that's gone. So now you're kind of stuck, you know, dealing with everything. So the family dynamic is a little hit and miss. I understand their situation, but very meh. Where I'm like, okay, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. I would have been different on my approach on how you're doing that. But okay. So like, there were times where I'm like, okay, it actually feels like they're a family. But then there's times where I'm like, yeah, I think you're just kind of roommates. I think you're just kind of roommates. You're kind of just bickering a lot. So the family, it's very hit and miss. It's very meh. And despite the movie's writing being a little deeper than I expected, the movie felt a little short, and some things towards the end that were kind of all dropped at once. It was kind of like they saw the runtime and went, oh shoot, we got 15 minutes left of the movie. We got to just throw all this stuff in here. Who cares if it makes sense? Just throw it all in here. And it does, but I would have liked to have seen a little bit more. So maybe, I feel like there was an extra like 10, 15 minutes that were cut from the movie. And I feel like that time would have been helpful to like kind of space things out, like introduce some stuff like in like the first act and it appears in the third act, or like maybe in the second act that then appears in the third act. Instead, it's like, okay, this stuff doesn't really appear in the first or second act, and it's just kind of dropped all in once. And then it's kind of like boom, 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 and then end. And it's like, whoa, did I just have whiplash? What happened? I mean, back to the point. Do I think this movie is awful? Because I've seen a lot of people say that this movie is just god awful. No. Was it better than what I was expecting? Yes. But was I expecting something like Shakespeare? Was I expecting Jordan Peele? Was I expecting another Sinners? No. No, I was not. So this is still like kind of a like, okay, feels very like middle of the road. And I think if the writing wasn't as deeper than I thought, this would be lower. This would be a lot lower, because then you would just have the atmosphere, and the atmosphere can only get you so far. I've seen so many movies where the atmosphere was the only good thing about the movie because they had nothing else. There were like characters sucked, writing was bad. It felt like they didn't care. With this one, it was like, okay, hey, let's do a take on something that, of grief, depression, and another word that I can't say because of YouTube, but it starts with the letter S. But and let's embody that. Let's try to take those and bring it into something interesting and new. Like, from their point of view, they just see a woman in a black outfit just sitting in their yard. And that's kind of like what's going on? And because they're secluded away from civilization, it's a long way. So it feels very much they're like, a bottle movie where, they're stuck in one location and they can't get out. So it does kind of have those merits to it. And it's kind of like the more something happens, then gets closer, and gets closer. So it feels like this ticking time bomb, but you're watching it happen in front of your eyes. So it could be one of those things where it's like, okay, they're like 20 yards away from the house. You look away for like a quick second, they look back and they're now 15 feet. And you're just like, how do they do that? Unless they're the Flash or Superman or Tom Cruise, they cannot run that fast. It doesn't even look like they ran. It looks like they teleported. So they pulled some Deadpool teleportation and they just did it. So it's like, okay, this is interesting. All right, let's go. And then the kind of third act happens and it's like, okay, like whatever. So this movie, it did surprise me a bit more than what I was expecting, because I was expecting it to just be completely bland, but it was actually a little more deeper and interesting than I expected. Some things do take the movie a little bit down. Do I think it's as bad as critics and audiences say? No. Is this going to be in the best of the year? Absolutely not. Would this be in the worst of? I don't know. Overall, the film had an interesting mystery on who this woman in the yard is that I think was the most important part, and they did do it. So maybe like a high fine or maybe like a low average. So like between there. Do I think this was awful? No. But I don't think it's as bad as people say it is. I feel like this feels like a movie where it's kind of like, okay, you want to watch something on a Sunday. You don't really want to use a lot of brain power. then maybe watch this, you know? There is a little bit of thinking going on, but, you know, maybe you can get something out of it.
You've been praying for me. Let me help you like you asked me to.
Stay away from my family.